Chapter 880. Sure enough, not long after, a middle-aged man with a short beard slowly walked over. When he saw her, he didn't shout to kill her. Instead, he bowed slightly and said, "I am the housekeeper of the Ning mansion, Ning Hai. May I ask for your great name and your background?" Muyan narrows her eyes at her. "Did you guys capture Wei Zi? How can you call it capturing?" Ning Hai smiled like a Maitreya Buddha. "My master just admires you and wants to invite you to visit." "Miss, please." Muyan's eyes flash. The Ning family steward's attitude was really strange. Even though he knew that she had killed young Master Ning, he still politely invited her to have a seat. Even though it was an invitation, it was actually a threat using Wei Zi. But wasn't this attitude a little too friendly? She was a little curious about what the Ning family was doing. The Ning family's residence was in the Big Dipper city, which was not far from Verdant City. It was said to be a city, but in fact, there was nothing else in the entire Big Dipper city except the power of the Ning family. From this, one could imagine how powerful the Ning family was in Minute Lu Jie. In the living room of the Ning family's main residence, Wei Zi cowered in a corner in fear. From time to time, she would glance at the man not far away. This man was called Ning Zongxiang, and it could be said that everyone in Minute Lu Jie knew him. Because he was Ning Yuqing's father and also the Ning clan master. Logically speaking, Ning Zongxiang should be in his early 50s. But judging from his appearance, he was only a few years older than Ning Yuqing. Moreover, he was tall and handsome, exuding a mature and attractive charm from head to toe. Wei Zi had also heard that many women in Minute Lu domain had fallen in love with Ning Zongxiang at first sight and wished they could climb into his bed. Even if she was only a concubine, it did not matter. Not only because of his status, but also because of the charm he exuded, which was intoxicating. On the other hand, even though Ning Yuqing was the young master of the Ning clan, many people sneered at him. Compared to Ning Zongxiang, Ning Yuqing was at most a pile of trash, even if he was Ning Zongxiang's son. Wei Zi secretly glanced at Ning Zongxiang from the corner of her eyes. He was sitting on the main seat with a cup of tea in his hand. His casual movements exuded a graceful and noble aura. His appearance, in particular, could not be considered unparalleled handsome, but his eyes were deep. Even though there were many fine lines at the corners of his eyes, he still had an intoxicating charm. However, Wei Zi didn't know why, but when she saw this man, she didn't blush at all. Her heart was filled with fear and self-blame. She knew that Miss had killed young Master Ning, and the Ning family would not let her off. Unfortunately, he was so useless. Not only could he not help the young Miss, but he was also taken hostage by the Ning family. Tears welled up in her eyes, ready to fall at any moment. Just at this moment, Ning Hai led a beautiful girl in a white dress and slowly walked in. The moment she saw the person, Wei Zi forgot all the fear in her heart and pounced on her while crying, Miss, why did you come? Hurry up and leave. I'm sorry. It's all my fault." "Boo-hoo." Mu Yang smacked Wei Zi's forehead. "Do you still remember what you promised me? I won't cry anymore." Wei Zi fiercely choked, desperately holding back her tears. She looked at Mu Yang with guilt and dependence, and followed behind her. But Mu Yang's gaze fell on Ning Zongxiang, her eyes narrowed. Chapter 881. He should have reached the 9th stage of abstinence, or even higher, the great perfection of half-step gold core. Mu Yang is looking at Ning Zongxiang, but Ning Zongxiang's eyes are almost focused on her. The calmness in his eyes is instantly replaced by amazement and desire. "Miss Jun, please sit down." Ning Zongxiang waves his hand, his tone gentle. Mu Yang is not surprised that Ning Zongxiang knows her name. Wei Zi, this little white rabbit, has been caught for a long time. She might have already said what she should not have said. But Mu Yang doesn't care, because no one here knows her real secret. Ning Zongxiang looks at Mu Yang from head to toe, his eyes burning. That naked greedy look is exactly the same as his dead son Ning Yuqing, making Mu Yang very unhappy. She can't wait to dig his eyes out. But Ning Zongxiang's eyes are presumptuous, but his tone is still gentle and appropriate. "Miss Jun, a few days ago, the person who made a ruckus in Tianxiong restaurant and killed my son, was it you?" Even though he was speaking in a gentle tone, Wei Zi shivered for no reason. Mu Yang doesn't care and smiles, so what if I was? Ning Zongxiang's face darkens, his voice turns cold. Miss Jun, don't you know that it is my Ning family's property, and Ning Yuqing is my son? Miss Jun is so presumptuous. Do you not put my Ning family in your eyes? Ah, isn't it the young master of the Ning family who is presumptuous? If he didn't provoke me and want to use me as a furnace, I wouldn't have done anything. Mu Yang slowly picks up a cup of tea next to her, takes a sip, then says casually, I have always followed a principle: if people don't offend me, I won't offend them, but if people offend me, I will cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Since young Master Ning dares to provoke me, then he should be prepared to die. The girl slowly raises her head as she speaks. Her peach blossom eyes meet Ning Zongxiang's eyes. Ning Zongxiang only feels his heart skip a beat, faintly feeling that those eyes are frighteningly deep. But very quickly, an even stronger emotion surges in his heart. That is desire. He has been famous for so many years, in Minute Lu Jie, there is almost nothing he can't get. But he had never desired a woman as much as he did now. Ning Zongxiang slowly exhales, standing up from his seat. Miss Jun should have heard this saying, a wise man submits to circumstances. Hitting a rock with an egg won't end well. Or does Miss Jun think that she alone can contend against the entire Ning family? Step by step, he walks down the stairs and stands in front of Muyan. The tall figure enveloped the petite girl. The closer he looked, the more he could see the girl's stunning appearance and snow-white skin. Ning Zongxiang felt as if there was a warm current surging in his body, and he couldn't wait to immediately pull her into his arms and wantonly love her. He could even feel that his old and silent heart was beating like a young boy at this moment. If he could get his hands on such a stunning beauty, so what if he lost Ning Yuqing's useless son? Moreover, this stunningly beautiful woman did not only have her beauty as a treasure. Ning Zongxiang took a deep breath. His tone was gentle but also threatening. However, the conflict between Miss Jun and the Heavenly Fragrance House was, after all, the fault of our Ning family. Chapter 882. Hearing Ning Zongxiang's words, Ning Hai and his subordinates standing at the side all show a shocked expression. Even Wei Zi widens her eyes, revealing a pleasantly surprised expression. She originally thought that the Ning family would definitely shout to kill the young lady who killed the Ning family's eldest young master. Unexpectedly, the Ning family's master is willing to let this matter go. That's really great. Only Muyan's expression remains unchanged. She even casually adjusts her sitting posture, saying more and more carelessly, oh? Then, may I ask what price Ning family wants me to pay? I want you to marry into the Ning family and become my, Ning Zongxiang's seventh wife. Ning Zongxiang stares at Muyan with turbid eyes and says without hesitation. Hearing Ning Zongxiang's words, Ning Hai and the others are completely dumbfounded. What kind of punishment is this? This is simply a reward. One must know that in Minute Lu Jie, there are many people who want to marry Ning Zongxiang. Not to mention being the seventh wife, even as a concubine, a maid, or even a furnace, there would be a lot of people scrambling like ducks. But this woman clearly killed the eldest young master, and the master actually wants to marry her as the seventh wife. Master, how can this be? Ning Hai anxiously shouts. This person's origin is unknown, and she is also the murderer who killed the eldest young master. If she becomes the seventh wife, the eldest madam will never agree. Ning Zongxiang sneers, his sharp eyes suddenly look at Ning Hai. Ning Hai's voice suddenly stops, and he shrinks his neck and retreats. In the Ning family, Ning Zongxiang is the absolute master. His words are equivalent to an imperial edict, and no one dares to disobey. Ning Hai was too shocked just now, so he couldn't help but speak up. But now that he has recovered, he is drenched in cold sweat. But when he looks at Muyan, his gaze is filled with shock and envy. He didn't expect that this woman would actually gain a blessing in disguise, gaining the master's favor and becoming one of the Ning family's hostesses. Muyan is also thunderstruck by Ning Zongxiang's request, and can't come back to her senses for a long time. Especially when she finds out that the people around her, including Wei Zi, are looking at her with envious eyes. Muyan is simply speechless. But, without waiting for her to speak outside the door, A woman with a head full of hairpins and a jade dress bursts in. As soon as she sees Muyan, she screams and pounces, "Slut, you killed my son, and you still want to seduce my husband. Shameless little whore, I'll kill you right now." However, before she can get close to Muyan, Ning Zongxiang had already lifted his leg and kicked the woman in the stomach, sending her flying several meters away. The impatience and coldness on his face were about to overflow. "Impudent! You actually dare to shout about killing me in front of me? Do you have any respect for me, the patriarch? I'm warning you, you better know your place. Don't think that I won't do anything to you just because you're the first madam. If you dare to be presumptuous again, don't blame me for directly dismissing you and kicking you out of the house." The body of the woman who was kicked twitched for a moment, then she cried sadly. At the same time, he looks at Muyan with a venomous gaze, as if he can't wait to rush over and tear her apart. After teaching the woman a lesson, Ning Zongxiang promptly and gently looks at Muyan. "You weren't frightened, were you?" As he spoke, he reached out to touch her face, his face full of concern and heartache. Mu Yang looks at his behavior, but she's so disgusted that she's about to vomit. Chapter 883. Sure enough, if the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. If the son is an animal, then the father must also be inferior to an animal. The entire living room fell into a deathly silence. Even the first madam's crying stopped. Ning Hai and the other Ning family servants looked at Mu Yang in shock, then at Ning Zongxiang, not daring to breathe. Ning Zongxiang's face changed from gentle and loving, little by little, to ferocious and angry. "You, say it again if you have the gut. Say it again. Which one are you talking about? Say that you and your son are both shameless pigs. Or that you are inferior to an animal." Mu Yang smiled faintly. "Whatever you want to hear, I can say it for you. Bitch, you're courting death." Ning Zongxiang finally couldn't bear it anymore. The spiritual power in his hand suddenly condensed into a fireball, fiercely attacking Mu Yang. This was the Ning family's raging flame fist. Ning Yuqing had also used it. But compared to Ning Yuqing's raging flame fist, Ning Zongxiang's raging flame fist was a real, unstoppable fire. Mu Yang's retreat was already very fast. She immediately used her water spiritual power to block the fire attack. But the water spiritual power she condensed was instantly evaporated by the fire. Her clothes and hair were also burnt by the flames. "Miss!" Wei Yizi screamed and wanted to rush over, but Ning Hai ordered people to stop her. Wei Yizi cried, "Miss, are you okay?" At the same time, dozens of Ning family's elites rush in from outside and surround Mu Yang. These people were all above the 8th rank of body refining, and some of their leaders had even reached the 3rd rank of Anidia. Mu Yang glanced at the burned holes in her clothes, then stroked her hair and looked at Ning Zongxiang expressionlessly. Ning Zongxiang had already calmed down. The fierce anger on his face disappeared, replaced by a high and mighty calmness. "Jun Mu Yang, your talent is indeed first class, but if you want to fight me, it's like an ant trying to shake a tree, you have no chance of winning. Moreover, this is my Ning family, everyone inside and out are my people. Do you think you can still run away if you disobey me?" Mu Yang unhurriedly pulls away the burnt hair on her head, then she looks at Ning Zongxiang and says, "You want to keep me, but it's not just to marry me as the 7th Furen, right?" Ning Zongxiang's pupils contracted. Mu Yang chuckled. With a flip of her hand, an unremarkable old zither appeared in her hand. "You want my zither?" Seeing the zither appear out of thin air, Ning Zongxiang's eyes were practically burning with flames. Indeed, after learning that his son had been killed, Ning Zongxiang was extremely furious and wanted to tear the murderer into pieces. In Ning Zongxiang's eyes, Ning Yuqing was just a stupid pig, but he was still his own son, and his talent was not bad. Ning Zongxiang spent a lot of resources to train Ning Yuqing, and planned to send him to participate in the sect selection. If they could enter a large sect like the Li Fire sect, the Ning family might be able to rise another level. He never thought that the son he had painstakingly raised would be killed by a woman. How could Ning Zongxiang not hate him? However, very quickly, he heard the accounts of the surviving guards in the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant. That woman's cultivation level was only at the 9th rank of body refining, but she was able to beat the guards and the 7th rank Inedia young Master Ning to the point that they were unable to fight back. Chapter 884. The Zither's attack was hard to defend against, and it was very powerful. It might even be a 4th-grade spirit weapon or above. Furthermore, the Heavenly Fragrance Brothel's madam had said that the girl's water spiritual roots were extremely pure. Her looks were even more outstanding. Ning Zongxiang had checked Ning Yuqing's corpse, and indeed found that his body had remnant water spiritual energy. It was extremely serene. It was probably the best cauldron for him to cultivate his fire spiritual energy. Because of these discoveries, Ning Zongxiang didn't want to kill Mu Yang. Instead, he wanted to take her into his boudoir and make her his wife and concubine. Hearing Mu Yang reveal his motive, Ning Zongxiang was not annoyed at all. Instead, he laughed wantonly and said, "Miss Jun should know that this world follows the law of the jungle. A treasure is a treasure in the hands of the strong, but in the hands of the weak, it is a lethal weapon." Mu Yang gently plucked the zither strings without saying a word. Ning Zongxiang sighed lightly and said, "If Miss Jun really does not wish to be my 7th wife, I will naturally not force you. As long as Miss Jun is willing to hand over the zither and teach me how to use it, the grudge between you and the Ning family will be written off. How about it?" Mu Yang raised her eyebrows without saying a word. Weizi said excitedly, "Miss, that's great. The Ning family's head will not force you." Weizi was really worried that the Ning family would seek revenge on Mu Yang. She also believed that with Mu Yang's strength alone, it was impossible for her to fight against the huge Ning family. Hearing that Ning Zongxiang wanted to marry Mu Yang as his 7th wife, although Weizi subconsciously felt that it was inappropriate, she still hoped that Mu Yang could keep her life. Now, Ning Zongxiang was willing to not force Mu Yang, as long as she handed over the zither. Weizi felt that this was the best outcome. Ning Zongxiang's smile became even more elegant. He slowly walked towards Mu Yang and looked at her deeply. "I heard that Miss Jun wants to go to the Azure Heaven Realm to participate in the sect selection tournament. Does Miss Jun not know that in this Minute Lu world, it is up to my Ning family to obtain a travel permit? As long as Miss Jun is willing to follow me, I can guarantee that you will at least become an outer disciple of the Li Fire sect. How about it?" Because of the 3 words Li Fire sect, Mu Yan looked up at him. Ning Zongxiang, however, thought that she had finally loosened up. Moving even closer, he deliberately lowered his voice and sweetly said, "I admit that I fell in love with Miss Jun at first sight. But I, Ning, have never done things that are difficult for others. I only hope that Miss Jun can stay by my side for a period of time, teach me how to use the zither, and at the same time increase her understanding of me. Perhaps, Miss Jun will change her mind at that time." Seeing Ning Zongxiang's gentleness towards Mu Yang, First Madam trembled with anger. She gritted her teeth and muttered, "Slut. You'll die a horrible death. You killed my son. You seduced my husband. I'll make sure you die a horrible death." Mu Yang sees Ning Zongxiang's affectionate look, thinking that his charm is boundless. She is so disgusted that she wants to vomit. She laughed mockingly and said, "Did I say that I would hand over my zither? You're just flattering yourself and saying a bunch of nonsense." Ning Zongxiang's face darkened. His eyes flashed with a cold killing intent. "I advise you not to refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. My patience is limited." "That's just right." Mu Yang's figure floated backwards. Chapter 885. A divine hand weaves the heavens, covering Weizi like a net. She looks at Ning Zongxiang and sneers, "It's just as well, my patience is also limited." As soon as her voice falls, her fingers are already strumming the zither strings. The sound blade turns into a sky full of flying swords. Ning Zongxiang's expression turns cold, and his evaluation of Mu Yan and the zither rises a few notches. But his footsteps are neither fast nor slow. His figure moves like a phantom, avoiding all the sound blades in a split second. But the others in the hall are not so lucky. The sound blade that Mu Yan launches this time is an indiscriminate attack from all directions. The sound blade flies as fast as lightning, simply unavoidable. Ning Hai and the others don't have time to react. They feel a sharp pain all over their body, and blood is already flowing out of their bodies. Even the first madam, who is lying on the ground, has her head grazed by the sound blade. Her hair and scalp are shaved off, and she screams like a pig being butchered. Muyan slowly twirls her fingers, stopping the sound of the zither. She chuckles. Master Ning's cultivation is really good. It seems that this move can't kill you. A little girl like you wants to kill me? Ning Zongxiang looks like he's heard the funniest joke. He throws his head back and laughs. Little girl, you weren't even born when this old man moved unhindered in Minute Lu Jie. Since you don't know what's good for you, then I'll let you see what a real expert is. Although he's smiling, this time, the smile doesn't reach his eyes at all. Instead, it's a wanton chill. It's clear that he really wants to kill this time. As soon as his voice falls, Ning Zongxiang's whole body has already soared up. Almost at the same time, the entire hall seems to be burning with a blazing flame. The furniture in the hall is just ordinary mahogany, and under such high temperature, they spontaneously combusted and destroyed. Ning Hai and the others were originally injured by Muyan's sound blade, but they were only in pain, anger, and hatred. But now, their faces are full of fear, and they scramble to escape. Oh no, the master is angry. Quick, we need to run. That slut is courting death, daring to make the master angry. It's fine if she can't live, but don't let us die with her. In the Ning family, everyone knew not to anger the family head. Because the patriarch had cultivated the blazing flame art to perfection, once he used it with his full strength, the scorching waves of fire would be uncontrollable. The people around him, and even the entire Ning family, would be affected. Ning Hai and the others escaped, but First Madam was a step too slow. In a split second, her hair and clothes started to burn. Help! Help! Master, save me, save me! She had no time to escape, so she could only desperately crawl towards Ning Zongxiang and reach out to him. Master, I've been with you for decades and given birth to your children. Please save me. I don't want to die. Lady Wang wanted to hug Ning Zongxiang's thigh, but Ning Zongxiang kicked her away again. In the blink of an eye, the flames had completely engulfed Madame Wang. She let out a blood-curdling scream and was completely engulfed. Mu Yang looked at this scene coldly. In her heart, she had a new understanding of Ning Zongxiang's cold-blooded shamelessness. He could casually burn his wife who had been by his side for decades. This kind of person isn't just cold-hearted, he's simply inhuman. But Ning Zongxiang's strength is indeed formidable. Chapter 886. The barrier of divine hands weaves the heavens was already up, so the flames didn't hurt her. But Mu Yang found that the spiritual power in her body was depleting quickly. If this continued, it wouldn't be long before she ran out of spiritual power and turned into a charred corpse like the first madam. Not to mention, she still had to maintain the divine hands weaves the heavens on Wei Zi. The consumption of spiritual power was also increasing exponentially. Mu Yang frowned slightly as she strummed the zither. She had to think of a solution as soon as possible. Otherwise, she would be slowly worn down by Ning Zongxiang. However, Ning Zongxiang didn't give her time to think. The raging flame art enveloped the entire hall. He suddenly pulled out the twin mace from his waist and swung it at Mu Yang. There was a loud bang. Mu Yang's body swayed. The barrier enveloped by the divine hands weaves the heavens flickered as if a crack had appeared. And the spiritual power that was already depleting at a rapid pace was burnt by more than half. Ning Zongxiang looked at her pale face and struggled to hold on. He laughed out loud and said, "Let's see how long you can hold on for. It seems that I won't be able to last much longer." Mu Yang sighed slowly. "Ha ha ha, if you obediently admit defeat, crawl under my feet and serve me well, I'll spare your life." Ning Zongxiang laughed even more wildly. The twin mace in his hands had no intention of stopping. However, when the mace swung down again, it didn't land on the barrier. Instead, it hit empty air, creating a splash of sparks on the ground. The already scorching temperature in the room rose even higher. From time to time, wood shavings would fall from the roof. Mu Yang stood a few meters away from Ning Zongxiang. The divine hands weaves the heavens barrier enveloping her slowly disappeared. And around her, 7 different colored longswords appeared. In the firelight, The corner of the girl's lips curled up, revealing a wanton and disdainful smile. Since I can't hold on for much longer, then I won't hold on any longer. I'll just take your dog life. Ning Zongxiang looked at the 7 long swords that appeared out of nowhere, his pupils suddenly contracted. Just now, he saw with his own eyes that the zither in the girl's hand disappeared and turned into a 7-colored longsword. And each of these 7 longswords emitted a powerful spiritual power, far exceeding the aura of a 4th-grade spiritual weapon. What kind of treasure was this zither? Could it be that it wasn't a 4th-grade spiritual weapon, but a 5th grade, 6th grade, 9th grade, or even a rarely seen divine weapon? What if this was really a divine weapon? What if he, Ning Zongxiang, obtained a divine weapon? Then why would the Ning family be content in this corner of Minute Lu Jie? Did he, Ning Zongxiang, still need to fawn over the sects of the Azure Heaven realm every day and think of every possible way to send his son to a large sect? Thinking of this, Ning Zongxiang's body couldn't help but tremble. The greed and desire in his eyes were even hotter than the temperature in the hall. However, just as he was having a beautiful dream, he suddenly felt a powerful and dangerous aura coming towards him. Ning Zongxiang shuddered and dodged to the side. However, he was still a step too late. With a ripping sound, a large hole was torn in the clothes on his chest. What followed was the pain of his flesh being cut. A bone-deep wound appeared on the left side of his chest. If Ning Zongxiang had not dodged in time, his heart would have been pierced and he would have died. The crystal-clear 7 Absolutes sword spun around and returned to Mu Yang's hand. Chapter 887. Beads of sweat rolled down her forehead, and her face was flushed red from the light of the fire. Ning Zongxiang looks down at his wound, and only raises his head after a long while. But it's not anger that's on his face, but a sinister sneer. In Minute Lu Jie, no one has been able to hurt me for many years. Slut, this time, you've really angered me. However, since you've brought me such a precious treasure, I can chop off your limbs and spare your life. Wait until I've sucked dry all the water spirit root in your body, then I'll send you to the next world. Ha ha ha. As he speaks, Ning Zongxiang takes out a porcelain bottle and pours all the elixirs inside into his mouth. Then, he suddenly tears off his clothes, revealing his sturdy body. Mu Yan's eyes sink. Because she finds that after Ning Zongxiang takes off his clothes, the muscles all over his body quickly bulge as if they're alive. In just a few short breaths, his whole body seems to have doubled in size. His originally handsome and confident appearance now looks like a meatball with twisted muscles and an unbalanced body, making people feel unspeakably disgusted. However, the pressure and spiritual power fluctuations all over his body are growing at a rapid rate. Mu Yan feels a suffocating pressure. The next moment, Ning Zongxiang's attack arrives. The 2 maces collide in the air, and a flame suddenly bursts out, transforming into a fire python. It opens its mouth, wanting to swallow Mu Yan. Mu Yan quickly waves the 7 absolute swords in her hands, and the fire python is scattered by her. But then, a sharp pain comes from her chest. With a loud bang, Mu Yan's whole body is bounced out and falls to the ground. The pain in her chest makes her face pale, and blood trickles down from the corners of her mouth. Miss, are you okay? Wazy cries, Miss, quickly run, don't worry about me, you can definitely run away by yourself, want to run now? Too late. A rough, muffled voice comes from that terrifying meatball. Ning Zongxiang suddenly changes direction and rushes towards Wazy. I'll kill the little slut next to you first, and let you know what the consequences are for defying me, Ning Zongxiang. Weizi's eyes widened as she watched in horror as Ning Zongxiang swung his flaming maces at her. However, before the dual blazing truncheons could break through Divine Hand's defensive barrier, a figure had already scurried over like lightning. The sound of the zither surged, and the twin truncheons were blocked in mid-air. Mu Yang's hand, which was holding the 7 absolute sword, trembled violently. Her hair and clothes were soaked with sweat. Beads of sweat rolled down her forehead. Ning Zongxiang let out a furious roar, and the dual truncheons in his hands smashed down. Tongues of flame danced. Die. Miss. Mu Yang suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, her body was on the verge of collapse, as if she could collapse at any time. However, she still managed to block Ning Zongxiang's attack. Miss, how are you? Wei Yizi doesn't care whether the flames in the hall will burn her or not. She steps forward to support Muyan. As he cried, he channeled water spiritual energy into her body. Mu Yang, however, shakes her off, takes out a pill, and puts it into her mouth. Ning Zongxiang's spiritual power was incomparably domineering, especially after he became like this. After 2 head-on confrontations, Mu Yang felt as if the internal organs in her body had been burnt. With her current cultivation, it would indeed be a bit difficult for her to fight against a half-step core formation cultivator. Chapter 888. I admit that your talent is far higher than mine. If you were given some more time to grow, you might really be able to walk out of Minute Lu Jie. But unfortunately, you've fallen into my hands now. Your talent, the artifact in your hands, will ultimately become my, Ning Zongxiang's, stepping stone. Ha 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 ha. I really can't wait to see you under me, to have your water spirit root sucked dry by me. Feeling the coolness brought by the elixir entering her body, Muyan slowly opens her eyes. Contrary to Ning Zongxiang's expectations, there's not even the slightest bit of despair, resentment, or pain on the girl's face, caught in a desperate situation. There's only calmness, as if she doesn't care. Even if her complexion is deathly pale, even if her whole body is soaked in sweat, even if her spiritual power is overdrawn, even if her body is covered in blood. But when she stands up, her whole body is lingering with a kind of disdain for the world, a languid and noble imposing manner. It's as if this woman was born to be high above, born to make people submit to her. Ning Zongxiang's heart thumps, an inexplicable panic flitting through him. But before he could grasp what that panic is, Muyan's wrist has already turned over. Muyan flips her wrist, and the crystal-clear 7 Absolutes sword turns back into the Tianmo Qin. It's clearly a battle of life and death. Muyan lazily sits on the ground, gently plucking the strings. The melodious sound of the qin is like a gurgling stream, flowing in the air. The originally scorching air seems to become cool under the watering of the flowing water. The worry and fear on Wei Yizi's face disappear, slowly turning into a peaceful tranquility. Even Ning Zongxiang is dazed for a moment, then his complexion greatly changes. What are you doing? Why is his mind shaken? The ominous premonition in Ning Zongxiang's heart becomes more and more intense. Based on his long experience, he doesn't even think about it. He crosses the 2 maces in his hands, igniting a raging flame, about to give Muyan a fatal blow. However, without waiting for him to attack, Muyan's body suddenly erupts with a strong white light. That white light spreads out with Muyan as the center, instantly enveloping the entire hall. Star Domain, activate. Ning Zongxiang suddenly feels that his body seems to be pulled by a mysterious force, unable to move. Every inch of his meridians seems to be filled with lead, and his spiritual power can no longer flow smoothly. Demonis, what did you do? Why was it that the moment he was enveloped by this white light, his life seemed to be in the palm of someone's hand, and he no longer had the strength to struggle? Mu Yang slowly stood up, a bright and lazy smile blossomed on her pale face. This is the first time I've tried to use the domain in battle. To be the first victim of my domain, you should feel honored. Ning Zongxiang's eyes widened, and his sturdy body swayed. A look of shock and horror appeared on his muscular face. Domain? No, impossible. How was this possible? How can you have a domain? In the entire cultivation continent, there were very few cultivators who had a domain. Moreover, those people were either grandmasters or rare geniuses. A young girl who wasn't even 20 years old had a domain. How shocking was that? What kind of monster was that? How could such a person appear in Minute Lu domain? Chapter 889. Ning Zongxiang roars hysterically and rushes towards Mu Yang. His face no longer has the calmness of having the pearl of wisdom in his grasp, only fear and suspicion remain. The curve of Mu Yang's mouth deepens. The Tianmo Qin in her hand spins a circle and turns back into the 7 absolute swords. Whether it's a domain or not, you'll know when you go to hell. Before the voice falls, the tip of the sword gently slashes in my star domain, I am the only master. The sun, moon, stars, thousands of miles of rivers and mountains, wherever the sword tip passes, it's just a speck of dust. Boom. Ning family, outside the living room. Ning Hai and the others are far away, looking at the hall with smoke and fire from time to time. But only a few of them show a worried and fearful expression. Because they know how strong their master is. No matter how arrogant that woman is, she will eventually become extremely miserable under the master's ravaging. Big Madam didn't run out just now. I'm afraid she's already been affected by the master's raging flame technique and died. Someone sighs. Oh, Big Madam is already old and not liked by the master. The only reason she was able to stay in the position of First Madam was because of the young master, who was rather talented. But now that the eldest young master is dead, Big Madam is naturally useless. She deserves to die. It's a pity for that girl, TSK, she's really a heavenly beauty that captivates even the birds and beast. If she's willing to obediently submit to the master, maybe the position of Big Madam will be hers in the end. It's a pity that she doesn't know what's good for her, and even delusions of rebelling against the master. I guess the master will still let her live. After all, it's a pity to die like that with a body of ice and jade bones and a stunning appearance. Haha, so what if she survives? If she annoys the master, she can only be a furnace at most. That's 100 times more miserable than being the 7th Madam. You don't say. Maybe the master will get tired of playing with her and give her to us. With that kind of stunning beauty, even if she's a withered willow, she'll have no regrets after a night of pleasure. Everyone is laughing and talking, when suddenly, there's a loud bang in the hall. The laughter stops abruptly, and Ning Hai and the others look at each other. He couldn't help but exclaim, I didn't expect the fight to be so intense this time. The patriarch even collapsed the house. It's a pity for that beautiful woman. I'm afraid she won't even have a corpse left. Before he could finish his words, everyone present widened their eyes in horror, and their voices were forcibly stuck in their throats. When the dust settled, they saw that the person who walked out was not the patriarch in their hearts, Ning Zhongxiang. Instead, it was a young girl who was covered in blood and was in a sorry state, but it still couldn't hide her stunning beauty. The girl was carrying 2 people in each hand. One of them was Wei Zi, whose entire body was stiff and her eyes were filled with shock. Mu Yang gently puts her down. Wei Zi stiffens and stares blankly at Mu Yang, unable to say a word for a long time. As for the other, rather than calling it a human, it would be more accurate to call it a bloody corpse. Mu Yang casually throws the corpse in front of Ning Hai and the others. Ning Hai trembled as he took a step forward. He took a closer look and almost fainted. That corpse turned out to be the Ning family's master, Ning Zhongxiang. Ning Hai plopped down on the ground, his whole body trembling like a sieve. You killed our master. Chapter 890. Stop. Someone couldn't help but shout, You killed our lord, and you still want to run. Muyan slowly turns around, a bright and languid smile blooming on her face. That smile is so dazzling that everyone's souls are dazzled for a moment. However, the next moment, her sword has already fallen, and the head falls to the ground. Muyan takes back the sparkling and translucent sword that hasn't been stained with a drop of blood, and says unhurriedly, I said, if people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I'll cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Do you want to try being eliminated? All the Ning family guards present have pale complexions. They keep quiet out of fear and don't even dare to move. Muyan sneers, then turns and leaves. Wei Zi suddenly came back to her senses and hurriedly caught up with them. The huge Ning family, the huge Big Dipper city, just watch as the girl who killed their lord swaggers away. No one dares to stop her. One day later, the news that the Ning family's lord was beheaded by a girl causes a sensation in the entire Minute Lu boundary. The name Jun Muyan is also known to the people of the Xiuzhen continent for the first time. This girl has no background, appearing out of thin air. But in just a few days, she's brought the first family of Minute Lu boundary, the Ning family, to destruction. In Minute Lu boundary, many people are guessing her identity and the sect she's from. The Ning family, who has come back to their senses, mobilizes everyone to find out her whereabouts and avenge their lord. However, Muyan has already quietly left Minute Lu boundary at this time, heading to the Blue Heaven boundary where the sect selection is about to be held. But this time, she doesn't go through the Dark Green City, where the two boundaries intersect to obtain a road guide. She directly passes through the Mirror Moon Mountain and enters the second boundary of the Shozhen continent with the identity of an unregistered resident, Blue Heaven. Mirror Moon Mountain Range. Miss, wake up, drink some water first. Wei Zi worriedly helps Muyan up and feeds the cool stream water to her mouth. Her little face is full of worry. Miss, are you better now? A red flame is also flying around her ears. Beautiful sister, you're finally better. I was so worried about Chocho. Mu Yang stretched herself, feeling the power and spiritual energy returning to her body. She smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm fine." Taking the lotus leaf filled with water, she drinks the water inside in one gulp. The smile on Muyan's face turns into one of rejoicing with lingering fear. The battle with Ning Zongxiang was the first time she had activated her astral domain in battle. The power of the domain was completely beyond her expectations. Ning Zongxiang, who was half a step into the gold core realm and whose cultivation was almost a whole realm higher than hers, was actually unable to fight back under the domain. However, the side effects of the domain were much more terrifying than she had expected. After leaving Big Dipper City, she felt as if all of her strength, spiritual energy, and profound energy had been sucked dry in an instant. His entire body was empty, and even walking was extremely difficult. At this time, as long as the Ning family sent out any nameless pawn, they would be able to tear her into pieces effortlessly. Mu Yang knows that her situation is very dangerous, so she makes a prompt decision and gives up on obtaining the travel permit from Qinglu City. Instead, he asked Wei Zi to bring him into the dangerous Mirror Moon Mountain Range. The Mirror Moon Mountain Range stretched for thousands of miles. It was the intersection of the Minute Lu domain and the Blue Heaven domain, and it was also the Piling Azure Blue domain. Chapter 891. But there were still very few people in Minute Lu Jie who dared to enter the Mirror Moon Mountains to cultivate. The reason was that there were countless mutated spirit plants and ferocious spirit beasts growing in the Mirror Moon Mountains. With the cultivation of everyone in Minute Lu Jie, most people would definitely die if they entered the depths of the mountains. Mu Yang brought Wei Zi into the Mirror Moon Mountains, feeling helpless. The Ning family and other sects and families in Minute Lu Jie were searching for her everywhere. The reason was, of course, not only because she killed the Ning family's master, but also because they heard that she had at least a 4th-grade spirit weapon. For the people of Blue Heaven Realm and Blue World, a 4th-grade spirit weapon might not be much. But for Minute Lu Jie, it was already a powerful treasure that could help a family dominate Minute Lu Jie. Mu Yang dared to enter the Mirror Moon Mountains, betting on the fact that the mythological beast aura of the little phoenix would make most of the spirit beasts and spirit plants not dare to approach. As long as she survived the weak period after the domain, there was naturally nothing to be afraid of in the insignificant Mirror Moon Mountains. Now it seems that her gamble was right. Mu Yang put down the lotus leaf and gently touched the little phoenix's head. Chocho is really amazing. The little phoenix immediately flapped its wings excitedly. "Oh, beautiful sister praised me. So happy, so happy." But soon, it shyly said, "Actually, Chocho is not amazing. The fat rabbit is amazing. At most, it could make these spirit beasts hesitate to circle around and probe by constantly releasing the pressure of the phoenix. But if the fat rabbit was here, it didn't need to release any pressure at all, and all the spirit beasts would be scared witless and flee." Wei Zi looked at the unreasonably beautiful little phoenix in amazement and admiration, murmuring, "Miss, is this the spirit beast you raised? So beautiful. I have never seen such a beautiful spirit beast." Although it was small in size, not even the size of 2 palms, it was extremely beautiful. "Miss, what breed is it?" Chocho, who was praised as beautiful, happily and proudly spun in circles. "Of course Chocho is beautiful. Chocho is enough." Mu Yang interrupted it with a smile, stretching out her spiritual tentacles to gently stroke the little phoenix's spirit. "Don't spin anymore, you'll get dizzy later." Be a good boy and go back to the space to rest. It's been hard on you to guard me day and night these past few days. Qiuqiu stopped spinning, intimately rubbed Mu Yang's face, and flew into the space. Wei Yizi has seen Mu Yang take out the Tianmo Qin out of thin air several times. She already knows that she has space. Other than feeling shocked and envious, there was nothing strange about it. There were a lot of people in the immortal cultivation continent who had a portable space, but there were very few people in Minute Lu boundary who had a portable space. But in Wei Yizi's mind, Mu Yang is no longer an ordinary person in Minute Lu Jie. What a joke! How could an ordinary person casually kill the overlord of the Minute Lu realm? It's been hard on you these past few days. Mu Yang patted Wei Yizi's head. Under Wei Yizi's flattered gaze, he chuckled and said, "You sleep here first. I'll go to the mountains to pick some spirit herbs. We'll set off for Windless Square tomorrow morning." Wei Yizi asked in confusion, "Gather spiritual herbs? Miss, do you know anything about spiritual herbs? Why are you gathering spirit herbs?" "Spirit grass, of course it's for alchemy." After dropping this bombshell, Mu Yang casually covered the little girl with a divine hand weaves the heavens and left. Chapter 892. At that time, she would naturally be able to rush over to save him. Mu Yang left, leaving Wei Yizi sitting there dumbfounded. After a long while, she muttered, "It can't be alchemy. Miss actually knows alchemy. Heavens, such powerful strength, such a young age." Even Ning Zongxiang, who was half a step into the Jindan stage, was killed. Now, she could even refine pills. Miss. What kind of deity was Miss? Wei Yizi slowly fell asleep amidst the chaotic shock in the wind. Mu Yang passes through the Mirror Moon mountain range, but she is somewhat worried. This was because she realized that just like what Wei Yizi had said, she really couldn't recognize a few types of spirit herbs. In the Yanwu continent, Mu Yan could be said to be very familiar with the properties and effects of drafts. Moreover, even if she can't recognize the draft, she can still judge the preciousness of the herb based on the concentration of internal force contained within it. However, it was completely different on the cultivation continent. In the Mirror Moon mountain range, almost all the plants were wrapped in spiritual power. In fact, the ones with the densest spiritual power were the mutated spirit plants with the strongest offensive power. However, the problem was that those mutated spiritual plants contained deadly toxins and could not be used as medicine. Mu Yang searched for a long time, but only found a few stalks of very ordinary spirit grass. And this is because some of the ancient books and records in the Yanwu continent also have a small amount of information about spirit grasses. Idiot! Just as Mu Yang was worrying, she suddenly heard Seven Brilliance's arrogant and disdainful voice. "Don't you know that your flourishing skill has already leveled up? Having a treasure mountain but not knowing how to use it, idiot. Stupid. Stupid. I think you humans died of stupidity." Mu Yang raises her eyebrows and directly skims over Qi Huang's attack. She senses the Shun musician skills imprinted in her primordial spirit. With this, she discovered that after experiencing the god-slaying thunder tribulation, many of her Shun musician skills have been upgraded to the 3rd level. However, they were all purely support skills that couldn't be used in battle, so she didn't notice them at all. One of them was the flourishing, mentioned by Seven Brilliance. After flourishing was upgraded to level 3, it had another name, Myriad Plants Chirping. Using this skill, all the spirit herbs within the range of the sound of the zither would dance along with her music. All the information about the spiritual herbs would enter her mind through the intertwining sound waves. After understanding the function of myriad plants resonating, Mu Yang was overjoyed. In this way, wouldn't she know all the spiritual herbs in this mountain like the back of her hand? The Tianmo Qin appears out of thin air. Mu Yan jumps to the top of a tree and gently plucks the strings. The tinkling of the strings and her fingertips overflowed like flowing water. In the next moment, it was as if countless stars had fallen on this mountain region. They were also like countless fireflies dancing in the green mountains and clear waters. All the plants touched by the starlight began to sway happily. Even those ferocious mutated spirit plants, who just wanted to tear Muyin to shreds and swallow her up, are now also dancing cheerfully. As more and more starlight fell, these plants began to grow at an extremely slow speed. Even under the pitch-black soil, there were tender green sprouts bursting out. The originally dense spiritual energy in the air became even denser and clearer. It was as if he could hear the cheerful laughter of the plants in the mountains, but if he listened carefully, he would realize that it was just an illusion. Chapter 893. But the starlight that was originally twining around the plants begins to fly back into her body. In a split second, it's like there's an endless amount of information pouring into her mind. One book after another records the attributes and appearances of spirit plants open and close in Mu Yang's mind. Earth dragon fruit, 100-deer vine, snake fragrant flower. At this moment, the strange plants of an unfamiliar world completely reveal their true colors. So much so that they yearn for this girl who's exuding a pleasant scent to understand them more, explore them, and then give back a more majestic vitality to this mountain range. Mu Yang falls into a long epiphany and digestion. Just like that, the sun sets in the west, the stars shift, and she's completely unaware. Until she hears the sound of hurried footsteps from below, as well as the woman's anxious and sweet call. Gongzi, Gongzi, please wait a moment. Mu Yang sticks her head out and looks down. She sees that under the tree she's staying under, there's a beautiful woman dressed in purple, running after a man in front of her with large strides. Behind the purple-clothed woman are several men dressed as guards, nervously shouting, "Miss, be careful, don't get separated from us again." But the purple-clothed woman simply doesn't care about what the guards are shouting at her. She rushes forward in large strides, wanting to grab the man's sleeve. Just as her fingertips are about to touch the sleeve, she doesn't know how the man moves, but the sleeve floats away from the purple-clothed woman's fingertips. However, the man still turned around. Through the intertwining branches and leaves, the man's appearance is reflected in Mu Yang's eyes. She's already used to seeing beautiful men, and Di Mingju and Qi Huang's appearances are already top-notch. But the moment she sees this man, Mu Yang still gasps. That ancient poem inexplicably emerges in her mind. The person on the remote mountain is like jade, the Gongzi is unparalleled in the world. Bai Ichen is also an unparalleled elegant Gongzi. Qi Huang's appearance can also be considered stunning. But compared to the person in front of her, she always feels that he's lacking the peerless elegance that outshines the mountains and rivers. Perhaps only a disdainful and immortal-like character like Di Mingju could compete with this man in terms of appearance and temperament. Mu Yang appreciates the gentleman is like jade, unparalleled in the world with great interest, but she's thinking in her heart. If Di Mingju were here and knew that she was staring at a handsome man, she's afraid that the entire Shozhen continent's vinegar jar would be overturned. However, just as this thought flashes through her mind, she remembers that she doesn't know where Di Mingju is right now. The joy in her heart dissipates like bubbles, leaving only loneliness and melancholy. She doesn't know if Di Mingju and Xiao Bao are safe and sound right now, and when will she be able to see them again? "Little beauty, why did you ask us to wait?" Just as my Nan turned around, a hooligan's voice rang out from his body. Mu Yang is startled. This handsome man with an unparalleled temperament and peerless style actually had such a wretched tone. However, she soon realized that it was not my Nan who had spoken, but the strange spirit beast on his shoulder. The appearance of this spirit beast was very peculiar. Its body was slender, but its head was very large. On its face, it had a pair of large and lively round glasses and a round nose. When it spoke, its expression changed. It looked both funny and wretched, giving people the urge to punch its bell-like eyes. Chapter 894. My Nan seemed to have sensed something as he looked towards her direction. Mu Yang's heart jumped. She quickly held her breath and hid herself. Just as she was worried that she would be discovered, she heard the purple-dressed girl ignore the spirit beast's words. She looked at my Nan without blinking and said in a coquettish voice, "Young master, thank you for saving my life." She looked at the handsome face of the man in front of her in a daze. The more she looked, the more her heart pounded. Her face turned red and her voice became even softer. My name is Jiang Xinyu. I am the daughter of the mountain-breaking sect's heavenly fire peak lord. I was accidentally separated from my subordinates in the Mirror Moon mountain range. If not for young master's help, I would have died. I wonder what young master's name is. Regardless of anything, Xinyu will repay you for saving my life. The mountain-breaking sect was one of the few large sects in the Azure Heaven realm, second only to the Li Fire sect. It was a place where many itinerant cultivators flocked to. Before the man could answer, the spirit beast on his shoulder had already shouted, Aya, what's there to be polite about? My master didn't help you much. He only helped you when you were being chased by the scarlet-eyed fire leopard. He threw you into a corner so that you wouldn't be a hindrance. What's there to repay for such a small favor? Mu Yang almost laughed out loud. She managed to hold it in. Jiang Xinyu's expression froze, and the corners of her mouth twitched. But because this spirit beast was my Nan's spirit pet, she gritted her teeth and endured it. She adjusted her emotions and looked at my Nan affectionately. No matter what, young master saved this little girl's life. It's only right for me to repay you for saving my life. Xinyu has no other request. I only wish to stay by young master's side and serve you like a cow or a horse. That's enough. These words were said with sincerity and love. Mu Yang shook her head as she watched. She never expected that the girls of the cultivation continent were so straightforward. She didn't even know the young master's name, yet she wanted to serve him like a cow or a horse. However, this man's looks were too outstanding. His eyebrows were like distant mountains and his eyes were like the moon and stars. He was gentle and unparalleled. It was understandable that Jiang Xinyu was blinded by his beauty. However, my Nan's expression did not change in the slightest after being confessed to in such a way. There's no need for that. It's nothing much, so there's no need to repay me. His magnetic and gentle voice was so pleasant that it could make one's ears pregnant. The man's face was naturally gentle. Even when he was expressionless, he still gave people the feeling of a gentleman with a unique beauty. However, Mu Yang keenly noticed a flash of impatience in the man's eyes. After saying that, the man turned around to leave. It wasn't easy for Jiang Xinyu to meet a man who could make her heart beat faster. How could she let him go? She took a step forward and tugged on the sleeves of the man. Sir, please wait a moment. You killed that scarlet-eyed fire leopard and that is equivalent to saving Xinyu's life. How can you say that it was as easy as lifting a hand? You're Xinyu's life-saving grace, Xinyu. Xinyu will naturally repay you with my body. She bit her lips, raising her head to look at the man's pitch-black eyes that seemed to contain boundless stars. She said in a tender voice, Sir, as long as you and Xinyu return to the Jiang clan, not only will Xinyu devote her life to you, she will also guarantee that you will be able to enter the inner sect of the mountain-breaking sect. In fact, even becoming the direct disciple of the sect leader might not be impossible. Chapter 895. Jiang Xinyu believed that the handsome man in front of her would never be able to reject such a condition. In this clear sky realm, many people want to enter the mountain-breaking sect's outer sect but can't. Moreover, she promised him that he would become an inner disciple of the mountain-breaking sect, and in the future, he could even become a direct disciple of the sect master. The man's gaze swept over Jiang Xinyu's hand that is grabbing his sleeve, his face expressionless. But Muyan inexplicably feels that the surrounding temperature seems to have dropped. Jiang Xinyu doesn't feel anything. Gongzi, I fell in love with you at first sight. No matter how lowly your original position is, as long as you marry me, I guarantee that you will have a meteoric rise in the future. You will marry whoever kills the scarlet-eyed fire leopard. The man's clear voice slowly resounds, still so pleasant that it makes one's heart tremble. Jiang Xinyu thinks that he is finally moved, and excitedly raises her head. Yes, my father has always taught me that a drop of water should be returned with a spring of water. Moreover, Gongzi saved Xinyu's life. I cannot repay such a great favor, so I can only marry. Hearing this, the man's lips slowly hooks up into a shallow arc. In an instant, all the creatures in this world, the scenery of the lake and mountains, are all robbed of their splendor. Truly, there is a gentleman who is like gold, like tin, like jade. Jiang Xinyu is dumbfounded, even forgetting to breathe as she stares blankly. At this moment, the spirit beast on the man's shoulder suddenly jumps down, its body instantly enlarging. Ha ha ha, little beauty, you want to marry me, that's great. Although your looks are only average, this lord will reluctantly accept you. In the future, you have to serve tea, wash this great immortal, and scrub my back. You have to do it well. Jiang Xinyu takes a while to recover from the spirit beast's shrill and excited voice, and stares blankly at it. She sees that the spirit beast that has grown to the height of a person is staring at her with its round eyes, shaking its head and drooling. Jiang Xinyu stutters. What did you say? The one I want to marry is this Gongzi. Who wants to marry an ugly beast like you? The spirit beast shakes its head. Didn't you say that you would marry the benefactor who killed the scarlet-eyed fire leopard? I'm so sorry, but the one who killed that fire-breathing beast was me. Little beauty, why aren't you coming to serve this uncle? Jiang Xinyu's entire body froze. Her bright red smiling face instantly turned pale. She looked at the spirit beast, then at the man. The man's voice was still gentle as he said, the one who killed the scarlet-eyed fire leopard was indeed my spirit beast, Kai Wen. In fact, it was also Kai Wen who helped you up and threw you out of the battle zone at the critical moment. If you really want to repay your benefactor with your body, I won't stop you. Kai Wen immediately raised her voice and said, Did you hear that? My master said so. Little beauty, hurry up and let me have a whiff. As he spoke, he stuck out his wet tongue and licked Jiang Xinyu's face. Ah, no. No. Disgusting beast, get lost. Jiang Xinyu screamed and retreated, her hands waving around. The guards behind her immediately surrounded her and shouted angrily, How dare you? Our young mistress is the daughter of the first wife of the Jiang clan and the daughter of the mountain-breaking sect's peak leader. It is your honor that she has taken a liking to you. How dare you humiliate our young mistress with a beast? Chapter 896. Hearing that, the guards immediately rush over with fiendish expressions. Ha 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 ha, a stinky woman with a crooked nose and slanted eyes, dares to despise this lord, and even dares to covet my master. Look at your stupid appearance, it's simply a toad lusting after swan meat. Kai Wen lets out a shrill laugh, and with a howl, she rushes towards the guards. On the tree trunk, Muyin's pupils slightly contract as she watches the battle in front of her. That Jiang Xinyu and her guard's cultivation is not low. Especially that leading guard, his cultivation has reached at least the 9th rank of abstinence. However, so many people were knocked down by that Kai Wen spirit beast the moment it came face to face. The time it takes for the battle to end doesn't even exceed 10 breaths. Kai Wen arrogantly steps on the chest of the guard leader. Looking at Jiang Xinyu who has already fallen to the ground in fright and shivering, she says haughtily, This lord just happens to lack a plaything. If you still want to repay me with your body, this lord doesn't mind taking you away. Saying that, she also stretches out her claws and scratches Jiang Xinyu. With a tearing sound, Jiang Xinyu's outer clothes are immediately torn. Don't help, hoo, I don't want to be defiled by an animal, hoo. You, if you really can't quench your thirst, I can offer my chrysanthemum to you. Please spare me. Fart. Muyin really can't hold it back. Her figure staggers a bit, and she laughs out loud. This eldest Miss Jiang, isn't she a bit too talented? She actually offered her subordinates chrysanthemum. Sure enough, the people of the Xiozhen continent have very heavy taste. Your Excellency has been watching the show for so long, haven't you seen enough? The man's voice slowly sounds, still magnetic and pleasant to listen to, but in Muyin's ears, she feels that it's full of ridicule. As he says that, he pulls down the sleeve that Jiang Xinyu had just touched, revealing a pair of fair and slender hands that seem to be carved out of beautiful jade. Hearing that, Muyin curls her lips, knowing that she can't hide anymore. She can only sway and float down from the treetop. The white-clothed girl floats down amidst the cool breeze and morning dew. Her sleeves flutter, her skin whiter than snow, her elegant bearing unparalleled. Ah! Beauty, beauty, a super beauty Arth. Mu Yang's feet haven't even touched the ground when she hears a scream piercing the sky. She was so frightened that her knees almost gave way and she fell to the ground. Just as she came back to her senses, she saw the strange beast that was as tall as a man pouncing toward her excitedly with its huge eyes wide open. Beauty, beauty, peerless beauty, let me have a taste of you. Muyan raises her eyebrows. With a slight movement of her mind, the Tianmo Qin automatically transforms into the Seven Absolute Sword. She raises the tip of the sword slightly. If you have the ability, come and try it out. Kai Wen's body suddenly leaned back and stopped in a hurry. She stopped just before she was pierced by the 7 absolute swords. His big round eyes stared at the transparent sword that was just inches away from him. A trace of shock and horror flashed across his eyes. What sword is this? My legs and stomach are actually trembling. The man at the side narrowed his eyes slightly. His gaze swept across the transparent sword and he seemed to be deep in thought. Chapter 897. Fart. Mu Yang couldn't hold back again. What the hell is this spirit beast? It actually said that its master is a feast for the eyes. Oh, but up close, it's indeed a feast for the eyes. She's hungry just by looking at it. However, when she looks up and meets the man's bottomless black eyes, her heart can't help but palpitate. Before she could distinguish whether that palpitation is fear, aghast, shock, or something else. The man has already moved his line of sight away, faintly saying, "Kai Wen, let's go." Kai Wen is clearly reluctant to part with Mu Yang. Looking at her face, she keeps drooling, itching to pounce over and lick it. But when she hears the man's order, she reluctantly turns around and leaves. As she walks, she looks back every 3 steps. Great beauty, we'll meet again. Don't miss my master too much. But if it's you, how about I help you climb into my master's bed the next time we meet? Mu Yang staggers. The man seems to be at the end of his patience. He slaps Kai Wen down to the size of his palm, and puts her into the sack. Oh, no, the Chenkuan bag. Even if that guy is about to be caught and put into the sack, he's still screaming, "Great beauty, if I help you sleep with my master, can you let me lick your little hand? Don't forget our agreement." Mu Yang's forehead is full of black lines, the corners of her mouth twitching. She's a little sympathetic towards that handsome man now. He had actually raised such a strange spiritual beast. Presumably, his daily life must be very chaotic. TSK. Slut, who are you? You're actually so shameless to eavesdrop on my conversation with Gongzi. Seeing the man's figure disappearing into the jungle, Jiang Xinyu gets up from the ground in a sorry state. She has nowhere to vent her anger, so she immediately roars at Mu Yang. Mu Yang is unhappily accused for no reason. "Hey, I say, miss, how can you invert black and white? I was sleeping well on the tree, and you came over to talk to me. Should I cover my ears and not listen? Bastard, who let you sleep on this tree?" Mu Yang sneers. Is this Mirror Moon Mountains your family? I can sleep wherever I want, who are you to care? Saying that, she turns around to leave. "Bitch, you're not allowed to leave." Jiang Xinyu shrieked and waved a long whip in her hand. "It's all your fault. It's all because of you that the young master refused to marry me, causing me to be humiliated by that beast. It's all because you shamelessly seduced the young master and ruined my plans. I'll definitely kill you today." The long whip whistles as it thrusts straight towards Muyan. Midway, dense steel thorns grow out of the whip at a speed visible to the naked eye. These steel spikes were not the mechanism of the whip, but Jiang Xinyu's ability. Her spirit root was of the metal attribute, and it was a 3rd-grade spirit root. After many years of cultivation, it could be said that she had achieved great success. Jiang Xinyu was very confident in her own strength. However, he didn't expect that he would be beaten up so badly that he couldn't even fight back and was almost humiliated by a beast. It was one thing for this beast to insult her, but he even said that the slut was much prettier than her. He even dared to call her a toad. Jiang Xinyu was about to go crazy. At this moment, she vented all the anger accumulated from being rejected by the peerless young master and being humiliated by the beast on Mu Yang. Chapter 898. Like a flexible snake, the whip makes a turn in the air and whizzes towards Muyan. Jiang Xinyu imagines this slut's face being pierced by the steel thorns on the whip, her face revealing a smug and venomous smile. Pa. However, the next moment, the whip hits empty air and hits the ground, raising a cloud of dust. Jiang Xinyu is shocked to find that the girl's figure has disappeared without her knowing. Without waiting for her to react, Jiang Xinyu suddenly feels a pain in her hand, and the whip leaves her hand. Then, something wraps around her neck and suddenly tightens. Ah! The steel thorns pierce into her flesh. Even if it's not fatal, it scares Jiang Xinyu out of her wits. You, what are you doing? I am an inner disciple of the Mountain Breaker sect, the daughter of the Heavenly Fire Peaks Lord. You touched me, you absolutely won't have a good ending. Muyan sticks her body to her back, chuckles lightly, and carelessly says, "What am I doing? Isn't it what you want to do to me?" Saying that, she raises the Chijua sword in her hand and uses the bone-chilling blade to lightly pat Jiang Xinyu's face. "Why don't you tell me what you wanted to do to me? How about I pay you back tenfold, 100-fold? Jiang Xinyu remembers that she was about to ruin Muyan's face just now. Her face immediately turns pale, and her whole body trembles. Don't, I know I was wrong, please spare me, boo-hoo," Jiang Xinyu cries with snot and tears flowing down her face. A puddle of yellow liquid flows under her feet, and a fishy smell fills the air. Muyan frowns in disgust. Then she hooks up the corner of her lips. "All right, seeing that you're begging for mercy so obediently, I'll spare your life." Jiang Xinyu thinks that she has escaped a calamity, and is about to rejoice. Suddenly, there's a tearing sound in her ear, followed by a chill. When she comes back to her senses, her clothes have already been stripped. What are you doing?" Jiang Xinyu's voice suddenly rises, filled with fear. Muyan says with a smile that isn't a smile, "Seeing that you're very dirty, I'm helping you clean up." As she speaks, the whip around her neck moves, and suddenly wraps around her body like a snake, firmly tying her up. She also wrapped the tattered clothes around her to cover the sensitive parts of her body. But the problem was, on the steel whip, there were steel thorns formed by her own spiritual power. Now that her entire body was tightly bound by the steel whips, the steel spikes pierced into her flesh, causing her to cry out in pain. Jiang Xinyu wanted to use her spirit energy to control the steel whip. However, he could not use any of the spiritual energy in his dantian. Mu Yang condescendingly looks at her, her peach blossom eyes indolently smiling, but the smile doesn't reach the bottom of her eyes. "You've been rejected and humiliated, but you don't dare to look for the person who humiliated you, so you want to vent your anger on other innocent people. If I were that young master, I wouldn't be interested in someone like you either." Jiang Xinyu glared at her fiercely. Her face was covered in snot and tears, but she dared not say anything. "You should be glad that I'm in a good mood today and don't want to kill anyone." The 10,000 plants resonating together that she had just mastered really made Mu Yang's mood very good. In a while, she would go to collect spirit herbs and prepare to concoct pills. Jiang Xinyu's eyes were originally filled with hatred, but when she heard Mu Yang's words and met her gaze, her whole body shivered. "She's scared to the point of peeing." Mu Yang sneers, and without giving Jiang Xinyu another look, she turns around and leaves. Chapter 899. Blue Heaven Realm, Windless Square. Wow, senior apprentice brother, this is Windless Plaza? So big. So many sects. Liu Ruoxuan's small face was flushed with excitement. She looked at Pang Yunfei, then turned to the Windless Square not far away, her eyes full of anticipation. Chen Xiuxiu wore a veil on her face, and the burn scar on her neck had not completely disappeared. She had been unhappy and grumpy along the way, but when she saw the grand scene in Windless Square, she could not help but reveal an excited and longing expression. Although Windless Plaza was a plaza, it was actually more like a concave basin in the middle, occupying an extremely vast area. Many tents had already been set up around the square. The people living in these tents were all cultivators who had come to participate in the sect selection or to watch the show. This was because the Azure Heaven Realms sect selection that happened once every 4 years would usually take a few days. There were no residences around Windless Square. Therefore, many disciples could only sleep on the ground or build a tent for temporary residence. Even so, there were countless people who came to Windless Square to try their luck every year. This was because, to many itinerant cultivators who had no power, influence, or background, the sect selection was the only chance for them to change their fate. In the center of the square, there was a dazzling golden palace. It was surrounded by dense spiritual energy, making people yearn for it. However, this palace was not built on the square a long time ago. It was a treasure of the Lee Fire sect. It was called Yin Dream Palace, a rather low-level Sumeru mustard seed. For cultivators above the Gold Core realm, with a slight movement of their divine sense, the Sumeru mustard seed would enlarge and shrink. For example, the Yin Dream Hall was the treasure of a highly respected elder of the Lee Fire sect. The Almighty turned into a majestic palace while the lesser stood on his palm like a pagoda. Of course, the Sumeru mustard seed could not be used as a storage space. Therefore, even if a cultivator accidentally obtained a Sumeru mustard seed, they would not keep it in their hands. Because if they were not strong enough, it could be snatched away at any time. However, the Lee Fire sect was obviously not afraid of others coveting it. To take out such a treasure at the sect selection would only attract the envy of countless cultivators and sects. At this time, Liu Ruoxuan and the others were excitedly looking at the Yin Dream Palace, their eyes shining. I heard that the elders who came to select disciples from the major sects are now living in this palace. Pang Yunfei murmured, if we perform outstandingly in this sect selection and are chosen by any of the elders, then it would really be, what was it? That was naturally a meteoric rise, reaching the heavens in a single step. Chen Shosho grunted and said with a proud look, I will definitely become a Lee Fire sect disciple. Yo, you're quite ambitious. Suddenly, a rascally voice came from the side, you guys seem to be from Minute Lu Jie, right? Hee, trash from the Minute Lu world wants to enter the Lee Fire sect. Toads are getting better and better at dreaming these days. As he spoke, a few men surrounded him. The man who just spoke had a pair of wretched eyes constantly sweeping over Liu Ruoxuan's face and Chen Shosho's voluptuous figure. His gaze was extremely lascivious. You two little beauties, if you are willing to play with this master can guarantee that you can enter the outer sect of a large sect. How about it? As he spoke, he had already touched Liu Ruoxuan's face. Liu Ruoxuan was so scared that tears welled up in her eyes as she hid behind Pang Yunfei. Chapter 900. As he spoke, he took out the token in his bosom. Liu Ruoxuan and the others were also scared out of their wits, and hurriedly took out their passes. The wretched man who surrounded them took a look at the pass, sneered, and casually tossed the pass. So what if you have a pass? You're still trash from Minute Lu Jie. Do you really think you can enter a large sect? It's your fortune that I like you. As he spoke, he suddenly stretched out his hand and ruthlessly grabbed Chen Shosho's full chest. Ah! Chen Shosho screamed, and without knowing how, the veil on her face fell, revealing her chin and neck full of scars. When the wretched man saw this scene, he immediately revealed a disgusted expression, and retreated several steps. Damn it, I thought it was a pretty little girl, I didn't expect it to be an ugly monster. Disgusting to death. Chen Shosho trembled with anger. She was the daughter of a Bright Moon sect elder, and her appearance was outstanding. She had always been sought after. When had she suffered such humiliation? The wretched man did not even look at her, but walked towards Liu Ruoxuan. Little beauty, it's still your soft skin and tender flesh that suits my appetite. How about it? Do you want to consider serving me for a night? I guarantee you. The wretched man's words had not finished when his voice suddenly stopped. His gaze unblinkingly fell not far away, his mouth slightly open, saliva dripping, obviously completely dumbfounded. In fact, it was not only this wretched man who was dumbfounded. All the men in this area looked in one direction, their eyes lifeless, their faces full of infatuation. Chen Xiuxiu angrily looked over, then her whole body trembled, the knife scar on her face twisted a few times, and her whole face became ferocious and terrifying. Not far away, on the small path leading to Windlass Square, two figures were slowly coming over. The one in front was a woman in white. Her clothes were extremely ordinary, there was no makeup on her face, and there was not a single ornament on her head or body. But it was such a simple adornment, on this young girl, that was devastatingly beautiful, unparalleled in the world. Her skin was fine and smooth, with a pink glow. Her eyebrows were bright, and her talent was natural. Her grace was as bright as spring, as bright as the moon in autumn. Everyone was dumbfounded and dumbfounded. It was even to the extent that in an instant, even the dirty thoughts of blasphemy were thrown to the back of their minds. But when Chen Xiuxiu and Liu Ruoxuan saw who it was, their eyes widened and their hearts surged. You slut, why are you still alive? Chen Xiuxiu finally couldn't help but scream at Mu Yan. Mu Yang raises her eyebrows, casting a sidelong glance at her. Even a slut like you can live, why can't I? Chen Xiuxiu gritted her teeth and said, impossible. How was this possible? Shouldn't you have already been by the Ning family? By the Ning family? Oh! What did the Ning family do to me? Mu Yan's eyes are cold and serene. Step by step, she approaches Chen Xiuxiu. How do you know that I should have been killed by the Ning family? Chen Xiuxiu's voice was stuck. Liu Ruoxuan's eyes flashed with panic. She quickly pulled Chen Xiuxiu. Miss, we meet again. It's really fate. My senior sister is just holding a grudge over what happened in the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant that day, so her attitude is not good. You mustn't lower yourself to her level. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with you, and I don't want to have fate. Mu Yan said slowly, what's more, I'm not interested in lowering myself to the level of a mad dog. Chapter 901. Mu Yan chuckles, whoever answers is naturally a mad dog. You slut, I'm going to kill you. Chen Xiuxiu madly rushes over, wanting to scratch Mu Yan's face. Especially when her own face was ruined by Mu Yan, she can't tolerate Mu Yan's devastatingly beautiful appearance. However, before her hand can touch Mu Yan, she is casually lifted by the collar. Slap 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 slap. 4 slaps, exactly the same as that day in Heavenly Fragrance brothel. Chen Xiuxiu's face instantly swells into a pig's head, the scar on her chin is even more protruding, making her look exceptionally ugly. Mu Yan casually throws her away, unhurriedly saying, what? Do you think that the previous lesson wasn't big enough, so you want me to teach you another lesson? Girl, don't go too far. Liu Ruoxuan loudly says, even if we almost caused you to be defiled by Ningdashao in Heavenly Fragrance brothel, we didn't mean it. My senior sister has already been taught a lesson and suffered a lot. How can you still be so overbearing? We came to participate in the sect selection, and in the future, we may even become fellow apprentice sisters. Why can't we get along peacefully? As soon as Liu Ruoxuan says this, the surrounding practitioners immediately start discussing loudly. Heavenly Fragrance brothel. Is it that brothel I know, Heavenly Fragrance brothel? These people are all from Minute Lu Jie, and there's only one Heavenly Fragrance brothel in Minute Lu Jie. Oh, I didn't expect that such a stunning beauty would actually be a prostitute in Heavenly Fragrance brothel, and even be defiled. Wazy anxiously shouts, don't talk nonsense, my miss has not been defiled, she's not a prostitute. Shut up, don't talk nonsense. Miss Liu, you still haven't clarified, there's no such thing. In the Xiuzhen continent, although the people are civilized, they don't completely care about a woman's chastity. Especially those prostitutes who sell their bodies, they are the most inferior and lowly existences, and are looked down upon by everyone. Wazy didn't expect that Liu Ruoxuan would make everyone misunderstand that the miss is a prostitute with just a few words. How could she endure this? Liu Ruoxuan seemed to be startled by Weizi's roar. Her body shivered and she said with a sobbing tone, I don't know. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I just wanted to protect senior sister. I really didn't mean to make you young Master Ning's cultivation furnace. I'm sorry. It would have been better if she hadn't explained. Once she did, it would be tantamount to confirming the fact that Muyan had been defiled. Wei Yizi was about to go mad with anger. You're slandering us. Our young miss wasn't defiled at all. You clearly know that it was young Master Ning who was beaten up by our young miss. Chen Xiuxiu laughed heartily and said, we don't know whether she was defiled or not. We only know that this woman was taken away for a few hours. When she came out of young Master Ning's room, her clothes were disheveled. However, looking at her happy face, I don't think she was forced to do it. Instead, she was very willing to do it. Didn't I say it back then? A slut like you and that filthy place in the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant are very compatible. As soon as these words came out, the surrounding people burst into an even greater uproar. She really is a whore that everyone can play with. Then, can I go and play with her too? Don't you think it's dirty to play with a plaything that has been defiled by others? Chapter 902. Chen Xiuxiu became more and more pleased with herself when she heard the discussions around her. However, although these people were whispering, none of them actually came forward to take liberties with her. She seemed to have suddenly thought of something and immediately shouted, "That's right, this bitch doesn't have a travel permit." She also came from Minute Lu Jie, but she definitely doesn't have a travel permit. You can play with her however you want. As soon as he said this, the eyes of the surrounding male cultivators suddenly lit up. No travel permit. That meant that they could ravage and humiliate him at will. Even if he died, they could just throw him into the wild forest in the mountains and be done with it. If there was a travel guide, then it would implicate the interests of Minute Lu domain worshipping the Azure Heaven domain. Those in power in the Azure Heaven domain would have to give some face to the big shots of Minute Lu domain. Therefore, although the wretched man just now was talking nonsense to Liu Ruoxuan and the others, in fact, they still wouldn't care if he really made a move, especially in this windless square where the big shots gathered. But the girl in front of him didn't have a travel permit. The wretched man swallowed his saliva and took a step forward. You really don't have a cross-world travel permit? Mu Yang carelessly says, so what if I don't? Ha ha ha, you dare to be so arrogant without a travel permit. The vulgar man laughs wildly, and immediately steps forward to grab Mu Yang's face. Since there's no road pass, let me have some fun. This is my first time playing with a woman in front of so many people. TSK TSK TSK, just thinking about it makes me excited. 10 breaths later. Screams came from the mouths of the vulgar man and his subordinates. The dozen or so menacing men were now lying miserably on the ground. Their noses were bruised and their faces were swollen. They were missing arms and legs. Muyan's foot is stepping on the vulgar man's chest. Smiling brightly, she asks condescendingly, "Excuse me, may I ask, what do you want to play with me?" The vulgar man's body convulsed, his eyes rolled back, and he fainted from fright. Muyan kicks him away, and her clear and cold gaze sweeps over everyone present. A heavenly voice slowly rang out, "Who else wants to play with this lady? Why don't you stand out now?" Everyone present took a step back in unison and kept quiet out of fear. Muyan's line of sight turns and falls on Chen Xiuxiu. Chen Xiuxiu's face was full of horror as she retreated step by step. Don't act recklessly. This is Windless Square. The elders of the major sects are watching. If you dare to touch me, don't think you'll have a good time. Hearing this, Mu Yang's footsteps slightly paused. Chen Xiuxiu thought that she had grasped her weakness, and immediately laughed arrogantly. What's more, which one of my words isn't true? Chapter 903. However, as soon as Chen Xiuxiu finished speaking, she realized that the surroundings were quiet. Everyone looked at her with brilliant expressions on their faces. Chen Xiuxiu was puzzled. Even if these people from Azure Heaven Realm looked down on Ning family, they didn't need to show such disdain, pity and sneer, right? Ning family? She's talking about the former overlord of Minute Lu Realm, Ning family? But wasn't Ning family exterminated? That's right. Ning family's patriarch was killed by an unknown woman and died without a complete corpse. Ning family lost its backbone. In the beginning, they were still shouting to hunt down the murderer, but within a few days, they were divided up by several major forces. This woman came from Minute Lu realm, and actually doesn't know that Ning family no longer exist. TSK, I wonder who the woman who killed Ning family's patriarch is. Ning Zongxiang's cultivation is already half a step into the Gold Core realm. Even in Azure Heaven realm, he can have a place. But many people had tasted the taste of power, and naturally would rather be the head of a chicken than the tail of a phoenix. So Ning Zongxiang's cultivation was obviously very high, but he would rather be the overlord of Minute Lu realm than come to Azure Heaven realm and grovel. But who would have thought that such an overlord would be killed in a single night? And the one who killed him was a woman whose true face no one knew. This matter not only caused a sensation in Minute Lu realm, but also caused quite a stir in Azure Heaven realm. Many people were discussing who the mysterious woman who could kill Ning Zongxiang was. When Chen Xiuxiu and Liu Ruoxuan heard these discussions, they widened their eyes in shock. After getting the travel permit, they left Green City and cultivated at the periphery of Mirror Moon Mountain, hoping to get a good result in the sect selection this time. So they were completely unaware that Ning family had already been exterminated. However, they knew that Mu Yang had been taken away by the Ning family. At that time, they all thought that Mu Yang and Weizi would undoubtedly die. But now, not only did Mu Yang not die, but instead, Ning family was exterminated. And it was exterminated by a woman? Who was that woman? Could it be this woman in front of them? No. How was this possible? This woman was younger than Chen Xiuxiu, and at most about the same age as Liu Ruoxuan. Although she was powerful, how could her cultivation be comparable to Ning Zongxiang, who was half a step into the Gold Core realm? How could she kill Ning Zongxiang? How could he destroy the Ning family? Chen Xiuxiu stared at Mu Yang, but her voice was extremely soft and broken, only Mu Yang and the others could hear it. Did you kill your master Ning? The corner of Mu Yang's mouth hooked up, and she said with a smile that was not a smile, why don't you guess? No, impossible. But that day, I clearly saw you being taken away by the Ning family. It can't be. How could you possibly kill family head Ning? Chen Xiuxiu was completely incoherent, and her eyes were filled with shock. Mu Yang sneers. She suddenly reaches out and clasps her neck, abruptly tightening it, so it seems that the people who informed the Ning family to capture Wei Zi were indeed you. Do you want to know how Patriarch Ning died? Why don't you ask him in hell? Chen Xiuxiu's eyes widened in horror and she struggled desperately. No, help. Mu Yang flicks her finger, and a pill rolls into Chen Xiuxiu's mouth. Chen Xiuxiu desperately wants to vomit the pill out, but Mu Yang only exerts a little force and the pill slides down her throat. Chapter 904. With a wave of Mu Yan's hand, Pang Yunfei awkwardly falls to the ground, falling flat on his face. Liu Ruoxuan anxiously cries, "How can you do this? My senior brother didn't do anything wrong to you, why do you have to do this to him? You've gone too far, boo-hoo." As she cries, she looks at the cultivators around her. "We may be fellow disciples of the same sect in the future, do you want to watch him kill my senior sister?" The surrounding female cultivators scoff, looking down on her act of seeking sympathy and help. Just now, it was clearly this group of people who provoked her first, but now she's crying like a pear blossom in the rain, looking like she was bullied. But when those male cultivators see Liu Ruoxuan's crying appearance, they inexplicably feel pity for her. Their chests swell up, wanting to do anything for her. Liu Ruoxuan gives people the impression of being kind, pure, delicate and pitiful, like a little white flower that can arouse people's desire to protect her. Thus, someone roars and rushes forward, making a move on Mu Yan. However, in just one face-to-face encounter, he's beaten to the ground by Mu Yan, wailing pitifully. Liu Ruoxuan caresses Pang Yunfei, crying even harder, her voice hoarse, full of guilt. I was wrong, everything is my fault, if you want to blame someone, blame me, let go of my senior sister and these innocent people, okay?" They only wanted to help me. What did they do wrong that you had to let them suffer such heavy injuries? At the side, Wei Zi is so angry that she's about to cry, her whole body trembling. It was clearly them who attacked Miss first. If Miss didn't fight back, did she just let them beat her? And you? She points at Liu Ruoxuan, agitatedly saying, at that time, in order to protect your senior sister, you deliberately pushed Miss out, saying that she has a water spiritual root, and let her be sacrificed as a furnace. Miss herself had the ability to kill Ningyuqing. This is something that everyone in Tian Xionglu saw. Miss was not defiled at all, but you slandered Miss. It's clearly your own fault, but you make it sound like Miss has wronged you. You woman, you're simply too vicious. Wei Zi, this little girl, has always been very timid and introverted, incoherent in front of the public. But now, she's cursing so much in one breath, without a whole sentence. She's obviously very angry. Liu Ruoxuan's crying face froze for a moment. Especially when everyone's gazes were focused on her face, it made her face burn uncontrollably. She didn't know what had happened to her just now. Seeing Muyan being stunned by so many people's attention, seeing her snatching away everyone's attention, seeing her stunning appearance, his heart inexplicably welled up with a trace of jealousy. Unknowingly, those slanderous words couldn't come out. But now, she regretted it. Liu Ruoxuan felt that she was a kind and pure person, a pure girl like a white lotus. She was different from her senior sisters. She had the purest and softest heart. That was why her senior brothers loved and pampered her so much. She could not let anyone think that she was jealous. Liu Ruoxuan takes a deep breath and walks in front of Muyan. With tears in her eyes, she says, "Miss, I let you down at the Heavenly Fragrance House that day. Although I have already apologized to you, if you are still not willing to forgive me, then you can kill me or torture me as you wish. I only ask that you let the others go." The surrounding people were already biased towards Muyan due to Wei Zi's angry rebuke. Chapter 905. Alas, since you've already apologized, let's forgive and forget. That's right. The little girl is so kind and pure, even if she did something wrong, it certainly wasn't intentional. Muyan smiles faintly, "Kill or cut, do as you please." "Are you sure?" Meeting those deep peach blossom eyes, Liu Ruoxuan shudders. Her voice, which was originally unafraid of death, is suddenly stuck in her throat. "Girl, you shouldn't be so overbearing." "This great aunt likes to be overbearing." Muyan sneers. At the same time, her movements are as fast as lightning, lifting her foot and ruthlessly kicking Liu Ruoxuan's abdomen. She let out a blood-curdling scream and flew out. No one can react at all. No one thought that Muyan would actually make a move. Without waiting for Liu Ruoxuan to get up, she has already stepped forward, grabbing Liu Ruoxuan's collar and slapping her face 4 times. "That kick just now was payback for pushing me out as a sacrifice. Now, these 4 slaps are for snitching on Wei Zi's whereabouts to the Ning family, causing her to almost lose her life." Liu Ruoxuan's swollen face has lost its beauty, but it still looks pitiful. No, I didn't," Muyan sneers. "If you don't want people to know, then don't do it. Do you think I don't know that with your ability, you can track other people's spiritual roots?" Liu Ruoxuan's eyes widen, aghast. How did she know? Muyan turns her wrist, and an elixir appears on her fingertips. "You martial sisters have repeatedly challenged my bottom line. Do you really think that I'm a vegetarian, compassionate person? Just now, your senior sister has already eaten one. You said to kill or cut, do as you please. Now, shouldn't you take the initiative to swallow this elixir?" Liu Ruoxuan desperately shakes her head in horror. No, I don't want. It's obvious that this elixir is highly toxic. If she swallows it, she'll die. At this moment, Liu Ruoxuan no longer cares about maintaining her pure, kind, and pitiful image. Her whole person struggles like a madman. This is the holy land of the sect selection. Who dares to make noise here? A loud shout suddenly resounds. A bright light flashes through Muyan's eyes. From the beginning, she felt that Liu Ruoxuan was not simple, and now she was even more convinced. This woman's luck seemed to be a little too good. His words were also very provocative. He could tell that she had a water spirit root even without using her spiritual power. At such a critical juncture, there was no hindrance for her to abuse Chen Xiuxiu. But if she wanted to teach Liu Ruoxuan a lesson, all kinds of obstacles would appear one after another. While he was deep in thought, he saw a slightly plump middle-aged man striding over. Seeing the middle-aged man, someone exclaimed, "That's the mountain-breaking sect's heavenly flame peak lord, Jiang Dahai. Oh my god!" The mountain-breaking sect is a large sect that is second only to the Li Fire sect at this sect selection. If only I could enter the mountain-breaking sect, it would be great, even if it was just an outer sect. Hearing Heavenly Fire Peak Lord Jiang Dahai, Mu Yang's brows twitched. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. If he remembered correctly, the Jiang Xinyu whom he had stripped naked and taught a lesson to in the Mirror Moon mountain range was the daughter of the mountain-breaking sect's Heavenly Fire Peak leader. However, Jiang Dahai shouldn't know that I taught his daughter a lesson, right? You dare to bully others in this windless square, it's enough to show that you, woman. She is also a shameless woman, you must not be deceived by her. Although Muyan has fed her the medicine, Chen Xiuxiu still doesn't feel anything wrong with her body when she circulates her spiritual power. She felt that it must be Mu Yang's bluff to scare her. Originally, in the cultivation continent, there were very few people who could refine pills, and in Minute Lu domain, pills of 3rd grade and above were very rare. I am the personal disciple of the Li Fire sect's elder Chen Hongxiao. After saying this, Chen Hongxiao waited for Mu Yang to reveal an expression of surprise and adoration, and then he excitedly stuck to her. Who knew that Mu Yang would only look at him like he was an idiot? What do you think you are? What does it have to do with me? She waved her hand like she was shooing away a fly. Go back to where you came from. Don't disturb my rest. Chen Hongxiao was surprised, and anger flashed in his eyes. However, very quickly, he chuckled and took a few steps closer. Miss, do you want to rest? It's so lonely to be alone. How about I accompany you? As he spoke, he stretched out his hand, wanting to hug Mu Yang's waist. Mu Yang mercilessly raised her foot and kicked him. Chen Hongxiao's body quivered as he quickly dodged. Following that, he looked at his lower body and felt a chill down his spine. Chapter 908. This time, Chen Hongxiao was really annoyed. Smelly whore, don't be so shameless. Back in the Heavenly Fragrance building, you have already slept with thousands of people. For this young master to take a fancy to you is a blessing accumulated over several lifetimes. Do you really think that a trash from the Minute Lu domain like you can pass the selection and enter a large sect? Let me tell you, if you obediently follow this young master might even let you enter the Li Fire sect as my concubine. Without saying a word, Mu Yang flicked her finger in the air. There was no Tian Mo Qin, but there was zither music in the air. Following that, countless swords flew towards Chen Hongxiao. Pa, pa, pa. These swords did not take Chen Hongxiao's life, but they slapped his mouth and tongue. In just a moment, Chen Hongxiao's mouth swelled like a sausage mouth. Even his tongue was swollen and numb, making him unable to say a word. He stared at Mu Yang in shock and anger, opening his mouth and making a vague sound. Mu Yang sneered, "Your mouth is too dirty, so I'll clean it for you. If you think it's not clean enough, this lady doesn't mind working hard again." With that, her hands hung in the air, as if she was about to play again. Chen Hongxiao was scared out of his wits. With a scream, he scrambled away. Wei Zi came back carrying the tense materials and ingredients. Seeing Chen Hongxiao's disheveled back, she could not help but ask, "Miss, who was that?" Mu Yang curled her lips, "A lunatic." Wei Zi did not mind, and immediately busied herself like a hard-working bee. She was very useless. She could not help the young miss with anything, but at least she had to serve the young miss comfortably. Mu Yang looked in the direction of Qian Hongxiao's departure. People from the Li Fire sect. It seemed that it would be troublesome for her to enter the Li Fire sect in this sect selection. But so what if it was troublesome? Mu Yang sneered. She had always been best at cleaning up trouble. In order to achieve her goal, she had to compromise and feign civility. She would rather use her sword to sweep away all the obstacles in front of her. The next day, the sect disciple selection officially began. The first round was very simple. It was to test the spiritual roots attribute and level. The windless square, which had already become lively in the past few days, was now even more crowded, densely packed with people. Of course, not all of them were here to participate in the sect selection. This was because the sect selection criteria were usually very harsh. Even if it was the foundation of the outer sect, even if it was the first round of the qualifiers, they would need to have at least a third-grade spirit root. Many people were actually here to watch the show. Of course, there were also young men and women who hoped to find young geniuses with extraordinary talent to be their dual cultivation partners. There were even some people with impure spiritual roots and ordinary talents who were willing to become the concubines of these young geniuses. When young women saw handsome young men, they would throw fruits and flowers at them, hoping to attract their attention. Mu Yang stands in the crowd, watching this lively and interesting scene, and can't help but feel happy. She knew that the people of the cultivation continent were open-minded and the girls were passionate and unrestrained. First, there was Monarch, "I'm pregnant with your child," and then there was Jiang Xinyu's bold request to marry him. Now, these young ladies looked as if they couldn't wait to snatch these young talents home. While he was watching with great interest, the crowd suddenly burst into enthusiastic screams. Chapter 909. Mu Yang looked in the direction of the voice and saw the attendant outside the Moon Dream Hall call out a name. Immediately, a handsome youth walked into the hall. It was this youth that had caused the crowd to scream. "Who is that? It would be great if I could become his Dao companion. That's Yin Tianzi, right? I advise you to stop dreaming if you want to become his Dao companion. He has a second-grade fire elemental spirit root, and his cultivation has already reached the third stage of Enidia. He was rumored to be the #1 genius of the Minute Lu domain a few years ago. No matter how much of a genius he is, he still came from a junkyard. He's just a dwarf that's higher. If he was that powerful, he wouldn't have entered a small sect without any resources or fame 4 years ago. He would be participating again this year." "Don't say that. Yin Tianzi is considered powerful. I heard that his goal this year is the Li Fire sect's inner sect. Pooey, this kind of trash can't even compare to a finger of our young Master Qin." The people of the Azure Heaven domain had always looked down on the trash of the Minute Lu domain. Even someone as talented as Yin Tianzi was often looked down upon. The people of the Minute Lu domain were obviously indignant, but they were lacking in strength, so they could only be angry without saying a word. Although the spirit root test was held in the Moon Dream Hall, the hall's doors were wide open. The scene inside could be seen clearly, and the voices could also be heard clearly. There was a circle of people sitting in the hall. These people were the elders or elite disciples sent by the various sects to participate in the sect selection. There were at least a dozen people surrounding him. Sitting at the top were the Li Fire sect's elder Qian Feng and his nephew, Qian Hongxiao. The atmosphere in the hall became extremely solemn and dignified because of the presence of these dozens of people. Some of the cultivators who had never seen such a grand scene were already trembling in fear when they saw this scene. During the spirit root test, they could not even circulate their spiritual energy smoothly, resulting in them being eliminated. But such a mistake would clearly not happen to Yin Tianzi. With his back straight, he calmly stood in front of the stone pillar used for the spirit root test. He bowed to the surrounding elders in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, and then placed his hand on the stone pillar, circulating his spiritual energy. Moments later, the stone pillar lit up with a translucent white light. The white light stopped rising and illuminated most of the stone pillars. Second-grade upper-grade fire spiritual root. Jiang Dahai shouted excitedly. "Not bad, Not bad at all. Yin Tianzi, your results this time are much better than 4 years ago. The level of one's spirit root could also be raised, but it was extremely difficult. Only the most precious heaven and earth treasures refined into pills, coupled with cultivation techniques, could remove the impurities in the spirit root bit by bit. 4 years ago, Yin Tianzi's test result was only a second-class mid-grade fire spirit root, but today's test result was already second-class high-grade. This was beyond many people's expectations. The crowd outside was in an uproar, all of them looking at Yin Tianzi with envy as he walked out of the hall. Right at this moment, the attendant outside the Yin Meng Hall shouted again, "Blue Heaven Realm, Qinizhou." At this moment, the commotion in the crowd turned into an uproar. "Young Master Qin, it's young Master Qin. He is the #1 genius of this generation in the Qin clan. His spirit root must be of a higher grade than Yin Tianzi's." A young man in his 20s walked out of the crowd. Chapter 9-10. He walked into the Yin Dream Hall with his head held high, and proudly placed his hand on the testing stone pillar. In a split second, the stone pillar lit up with a resplendent light. The entire stone pillar was completely filled with light, leaving only a small part at the top unlit. This time, even Chen Feng could not sit still. He suddenly stood up from his seat and approached the stone pillar to take a closer look. Grade 1 medial grade wind spiritual root. It really is a grade 1 medial grade wind spiritual root. Good, you are very good. Chen Feng patted Qinizhou on the shoulder, his face filled with love. Perform well, the Li Fire sect's doors will be open to you. Qinizhou's face was still arrogant, but a look of joy flashed in his eyes. He bowed towards Chen Feng and left. In the grand hall, the other sect's elders all looked at Chen Feng with envy. It seems like the Li Fire sect has obtained another good sapling. That was a grade 1 medial grade wind spiritual root. Even in the entire cultivation continent, it was extremely rare. When Qinizhou left the Yin Dream Hall, he was naturally pursued and envied by many. For a time, the entire plaza was filled with the name Qinizhou. Mu Yang also stared at Qinizhou a few times. This youth's cultivation level was not as high as Ningyuqing's, probably only at the 9th rank of abstaining from grain. But Mu Yang could feel that in terms of strength, he might be higher than Ningyuqing. Qi Huang. Mu Yang suddenly asked in her heart, will this testing stone pillar be able to detect my true spiritual root attribute? In the Yenwu continent, Qi Huang had told her not to expose her moon spiritual root, or it might attract danger. If this stone pillar could detect her moon spiritual root attribute, then she could only give up on the sect selection. What a joke! Qi Huang's disdainful voice came from beside her ear. How can this crappy stone detect moon spiritual root? Don't worry about it. In the cultivation continent, as long as you do not activate your moon spiritual root, no one or any magical item can detect your moon spiritual root attribute. In fact, before the moon spiritual root was completely fused, even in the cultivation continent, not many people could detect it. Mu Yang heaved a sigh of relief. This fellow Qi Huang is unreliable in many matters, but regarding the Shun musicians and the moon spiritual root, as well as some ancient secrets, this fellow knows them like the back of his hand. He didn't know that this guy was an old monster who had lived for hundreds of years, yet he still looked like a jade-like youth. You actually said that Ben Zun is an old monster. Qi Huang stomps his feet in anger in the space. Your man Di Mingju is the old monster. Old. Demon. Strange. Me. The corner of Mu Yang's mouth twitches. She doesn't want to bother with this guy. Because of Yin Tianzi and Qinizhou, these two monstrous geniuses, the Xiuzhe that went in to take the Ling root test did not cause any more waves. There were thousands of people who participated in the sect selection. There were very few who could pass the first round of the spiritual root aptitude test. Especially those who came from the Minute Lu domain, it was already very good if 1 out of 10 of them had a 3rd-grade spirit root. These people did not have much hope in their hearts, but they still wanted to take a gamble. In the end, they could only return in disappointment. But even if they passed the test, Most of them only had third-grade spiritual roots. Like Yin Tianzi's second-grade high-grade, and Chinajo's first-grade middle-grade, no one else appeared. Minute Lu Domain, Chen Xiuxiu, come and take the Ling root test. Chapter 9-11. Minute Lu Jie, Chen Xiuxiu, third-grade water spirit root, test passed, next round of examination. Minute Lu Jie, Wu Fangyi, third-grade wood spirit root, test passed, next round of examination. Minute Lu Jie, Pang Yun Fei, third-grade fire spirit root, test passed, next round of examination. 3 people passed in a row, and all of them were from Minute Lu Jie. The surrounding practitioners finally became restless again. These people are not only from Minute Lu Jie, they're all from the same sect, Bright Moon Sect. I didn't expect Bright Moon Sect to have gathered so many talented practitioners. The people of Bright Moon Sect held their heads high and puffed out their chests, extremely proud. Only Chen Xiuxiu found it hard to calm down. She knew her spirit root was third grade, but a third-grade spirit root could not enter the inner sect of a large sect. So in this period of time, she had used her father's authority to collect worldly treasures, hoping to increase the attribute of her spirit root. She hadn't expected that after so many, it was still third grade. At this time, someone shouted from Moondream Hall, Minute Lu Jie, Liu Ruoxuan, come and have your spirit root tested. Liu Ruoxuan timidly walked out, her slender figure slowly walking into Moondream Hall like a small white flower that could be blown away by the wind at any moment. When she walked into the hall, she did not see where she was stepping and stumbled, almost falling. Her small face immediately showed a tearful expression. So sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. Jiang Dahai had seen Liu Ruoxuan before. Seeing her delicate appearance, he hurriedly comforted her. Don't be afraid. You just need to put your hand on the stone pillar and inject spirit energy. Liu Ruoxuan obediently nodded, walked in front of the stone pillar, and carefully put her hand on the stone pillar. The elders of the other sects couldn't help but smile when they saw her act like this. This little girl was like a little rabbit, really lovable. Only an old man in ragged clothes was sleeping soundly in the corner. The youth standing next to him couldn't help but twitch his mouth when he saw Liu Ruoxuan's appearance. She's actually the small white flower type that 4th Shijie hates the most. If 4th Shijie was here, she probably wouldn't be able to restrain herself. Liu Ruoxuan put her hand on the stone pillar and channeled her spirit energy. In the next moment, the originally dark grey stone pillar suddenly lit up. The light shot straight up and stopped after passing more than half of the stone pillar. After a moment of silence in the hall, someone exclaimed in surprise, It's actually a second-class medium-grade wood attribute spiritual root. I didn't expect that a mere Minute Lu domain would produce another genius besides Yin Tianzi. Little girl, come over here and let us have a look at your cultivation. What spells have you learned? Liu Ruoxuan seemed to be startled. Her body shivered for a moment before she timidly walked in front of the elders. It's really a piece of unpolished jade, completely unpolished. My mountain-breaking sect wants this young lady. Your wind and thunder pavilion better not fight with me. Are you kidding me? This little girl has a single wood spiritual root. She's obviously more suitable for our 5 spirits sect. The commotion in the main hall was naturally seen and heard by the people outside. Everyone in the Bright Moon sect was boiling with excitement. Pang Yunfei said proudly and dotingly, Jin'er has really done our Bright Moon sect proud. I remember that junior sister Liu's spirit root was only 3rd grade last year. I didn't expect it to become 2nd grade mid-grade now. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.